the wide range of next generation solution what we have. So I think that's it from my side.
Our first panel session is on the topic of safeguarding your enterprise from complex and ever-evolving cyber attacks. And for this session, we have with us firstly our moderator, Mr. Sabarinathan Sampath, Senior Vice President and COO of ZNet Technologies. Sabarinathan Sampath is a proficient seasonal senior executive with well over 2 decades of experience delivering large-scale custom integrated technology solutions for leading telcos, hosters, and large enterprises. His expertise include consulting and launching of web, e-commerce, and cloud services. Delivering of platforms, he is an inspirational leader and a mentor for his team and works effectively in building new global cross-functional teams. He has held senior positions in Europe and in Southeast Asia in large multinational companies and is a regular in various IT industry events. So over to you, Mr. Sampath. Looking forward to your quick introduction on all our panelists and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Nimit. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the opportunity as well. Are you able to hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. As Nimit mentioned, I'm Sabarinathan Sampath, I'm Senior VP and Chief Operating Officer. Thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you, W Media. And I'm absolutely delighted and thrilled to be amidst the midst of a elite set of panelists and experts in the industry. The primary focal point of what we'll be talking today is about how do we work on safeguarding our enterprise organization or your enterprise organization from these complex cyber attacks. And to talk about that, I have a great set of experts joining with me here. First, we'll start off with Babitha. Babitha is the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer with Catholic Syrian Bank. She heads the IT function as well. She drives the IT security strategy of the organization with more than 18 years of experience. And she is a pretty regular in the industry circuit, talking on various different cybersecurity topics as well. And she's an award winner. And she recently secured the Top 100 CISO Award 2020 by the CISO platform. Welcome on board. Thank you, Babitha, for joining us today. And next we have Mr. Navaneethan. He is the Chief Information Security Officer with Groww. Groww, he has a deep passion for cybersecurity space. He is a Senior VP and the Chief Information Security Officer and Head of IT as well. With his vast expertise, he has specialist focus on the cybersecurity landscape and a lot of work on the people leadership as well. He holds more than 21 certifications on cybersecurity on all industry related as well. And he has a lot of expertise with which he has worked on and contributed to a lot of multinational organizations like Xerox, Capgemini, Deloitte, etc. as well. And he's a part of the special interest group, a council member of the NASSCOM Cybersecurity Future Scale as well. Welcome on board, Navaneethan. Thank you for joining us. And we also have Vishal Pranjale. Vishal is the head of cybersecurity and business resilience from Invesco Limited. Thank you, Vishal, for joining us. He has a specialist expertise on enterprise risk management and a lot of focus on implementing industry-specific standards and policies as well. With the CISSP, CISA, CISM certifications, and with a strong security background, Vishal has front-ended and led a lot of security assignments over the years with a lot of organizations. Welcome on board, Vishal. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sabri.
Thank you. And we have RaviKiran Avvaru. He heads the IT function with Apollo Tyres. He has very diversified experience over the last 20 years of, in terms of career as such. He started off with the financial sector and worked on manufacturing liquid natural gas, electric and power automation, and most recently, currently working with Apollo Tyres as well. So thank you. We'll look forward to hearing from you on your expertise as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabri.
And last but not the least, people who have been dialing into this session earlier would have probably been talking and listening to Mr. Ravi. Ravi is the Director of Sales Engineering for India and SAARC from Sophos Technologies, with over 14 years of his experience out of the 17 just in Sophos itself, primarily focusing on answering customer and solutioning and offering solutions to customers, and also with special focus and emphasis on customers from potentially defense, BFSI, education verticals, and amongst others as well. So welcome on board. So thank you all for joining us today. As I mentioned, the primary focus of this is to understand a little bit more about the ever-evolving cyber attack landscape. What is vital to see is that, as Ravi also mentioned in the previous session, digital transformation has been fast-tracked significantly in the last 1 year because of the COVID scenario. This has led to a lot of us using a lot of digital devices now. And as a result of which, a lot of endpoints are out there right now, a lot of PCs, a lot of laptops, a lot of mobile devices, tablets, IoT devices, you name them. They're all electronically, digitally connected as well. This exposes us to a huge risk of phishing, malware attacks, and all of that has compounded significantly in the last 1 year because of some of these activities as well. How this is taking shape, etc. So let's start off with the first question to the panel. Dynamically, we used to have, for example, crypto jacking, ransomware, etc., and those have now matured into something very sophisticated, right? And I'm very keen to hear, for example, we'll start with Mr. Vishal. So how are these changing? Why are these threats changing? And also keen to understand, what does it imply for an organization or for a CISO like you, right? So I'll be happy to hear from you, Vishal.
Thanks, Sabri. I think this is a great question. And if you look at the world is inexorably going digital. Look at last year, due to COVID, the entire world has to move to digital and connect to internet overnight. All the businesses had to enable remote workforces overnight without planning and preparation. As per the ISIS-2 study last year, around after COVID, around 114% businesses, they had to enable the remote workforces. Around almost 70% businesses, they had to find a cloud solution for their business. So that's why the trend is showing rise in the sophisticated cyber attacks using this kind of advanced technology in the area of malware, phishing, cryptojacking. And now, since every business is on the digital and connected to internet, so it's very easy for the hackers also to target these businesses. And with the sophisticated approach, even now hackers with lesser technical skills, they use very easily available toolkits and ready to use toolkits on the net, and they just go and start attacking on the companies. Again, if you look at the overall threat landscape, if you look at the threat vectors, most of the companies, they try to go for some kind of automation, innovative approach, like in AI, say IoT. But have we sometimes think that these innovations are helping the cyber attackers also, right? Many cyber attackers, they are using the AI-based attacks to attack the different companies. They are targeting the IoTs to attack. So yes, I think as you mentioned, that the threat landscape is changing rapidly, and the cyber attackers, they are always looking to take advantage of these kind of worldwide events as like pandemic to exploit new vulnerabilities and circumvent even most advanced security controls. As per the Gartner 2020 report, the threat landscape is going to rank the top driver impacting the information security organizations till next 3 to 5 years. Now, coming back to the second part of the questions, how the CISOs or the security leaders can manage these attacks. So there are, I would say, 3 to 4 points which I can talk about it. And the first and foremost is don't forget the basics. Let's start from the basics. So if you look at the attacks last year, like say Equifax or even SolarWinds. Now SolarWinds, the vulnerabilities has been informed them much in advance, but then nobody acted on it. Equifax, the overall attack happens just because they didn't install one patch and they had to lost $143 million records, and they had a lot of impact. So don't forget the basics and have the basics in place. The next point for the CISOs or the cyber leaders is the cybersecurity. It's, I think, one of the top rated risks. So always you need to take this to the boardroom and create awareness and make the impact. And almost for this particular to manage the threat, and its threat landscape is continuously changing. So the security leaders, they need to do the continuous assessment of threats, and also they need to deploy the agile security solutions and not just rely on the legacy security solutions. So these are some of the points from my side for this particular question. I'm happy to take any questions. So I think Sabri, you are talking on mute.
My apologies. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think the important point what you mentioned is innovation is not necessarily just used by businesses to grow. It's actually exploited by the hackers also to effectively, latch on to some of these as well. So I think that's point well said. Probably I'll open up to Mr. Navaneethan. Happy to hear your thoughts on it.
Amazing, Sabri. I believe I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for the great opportunity and being part of great panel. It's my honor and privilege, and it's a great questions, as well as things are moving on the way it is absolutely different. If you go back, that's 5 to 10 years back, the people are struggle to get into from data center to the cloud environment, right? The people think like we are not sure who will have access to what level of stuff. Now it's not only on the adopting on the cloud environment. There's the entire the managing overall infrastructure, as well as from security also it's given to the third party. So that's why really each organizations it's need a lot of effort to understand what are the portfolio they hold it, and then what is the portfolio so it's given to the outside. The reason behind these questions, as well as the aspect is, if you see the recent SolarWinds exploits, whatever it has happened, the people are focusing purely to protect their own environment, right? In terms of, if I'm running the bank, the people will think I have to protect my customers' data as well as my own infrastructure. But now it's went on the different the dimensions. It's not only on your infrastructure. Really, you should have eye on where and all you have this third party vendor, and what are the softwares it's being used in your environment also. It's very important. It's like driving on the highway, right? I mean, you should not have eye on only your road, right? You should have it on counterpart opposite side also, who is driving, how is driving. So that factor is very much is required. So that standpoint, maybe as an organization, if you take we should have a great posture on any time. So like how many employees, how many vendors, how many software it's being used, what are the asset is being used, and then where it is used, and then how it is being used, and then how it is being controlled. So that standpoint, just organization posture is, it may not be a security posture. At least the posture should be in handy at any time. It's maybe required by the any CAO as well as on the CISO standpoint. If you take the current situation, it's absolutely different, right? I mean, in terms of sorry for that. If you take this, all the cloud bond company, most of the folks they on the cloud, and then if any engineering team they feel like they wanted to adapt on any software, just straight away they can go and buy, adapt, and plug into the environment. It may not go via the CIO, it may not go via the centralized in the console, so that they will review that product whether it is effective or it need any lot of attention over there. So it goes on the different. So the shadow ATs is a bigger wing. Second one is the cloud posture as well as the overall organization posters. What it is required from the end to end. It's played a very significant role. And the third factor is if you see this earlier, I believe just 15 years back, what are the time just you take, people would have thought through specifically if it is IT, there is no separate information security or cyber security. IT is the one take care of the entire stuff. If anything comes on the laptop server, IT is the one provided. So that's why we have only the term called virus, right? Now we have many, like in terms of the ransomware itself, we have more than 30 variety of the ransomware which is familiarly connected to the network. Similarly, we have worms, we have backdoors, and then virus, droppers, spyware, miners. So functionality it's going up on the bigger bit. At the same time, in terms of the infections, the level of the impact and threat landscapes also really a little bit wider, and in terms of the depth of road actually. So that's a way where we need a very 360-degree holistic view from end to end, how we can take care of overall the posters and the micro segmentation of the components what we have, including the endpoint, and of course the third one, whatever I have mentioned. Of course, we have a few more interesting points we'll connect and then take it forward. Over to you, Sabri.
Sure. Thank you, Navaneethan. I think the point which really attracted me, what you mentioned, was about we always focus on how our infrastructure is, but we really not necessarily focus too much on what our vendors' infrastructure is. Do they have sufficient controls in place? As a part of the procurement process, to focus on some of that also is very vital. So thank you for that thought, Navaneethan. That's very useful. We'll talk to RaviKiran now. Ravi, will be happy to hear from you. In terms of your expertise and your thoughts on what are the implications for you as a head of IT, and how are these new these threat landscapes affecting you as an organization?
Sabri, thanks for this query on cybersecurity. See, the biggest change which we have seen maybe when we have started our career and now is when you remember when virus used to attack our systems, only that IT engineers to go and they used to clean up, insert some floppy or put some latest patches, clean up the system, and hand over the system to the user. So we have seen very minimal impact of IT services, and there is no big impact on business side. So that was the case earlier when these type of cyber attacks or viruses which used to come into the system and spoiling the file allocation tables. Now the threat landscape has changed. Now if you see, any cyber attack is directly proportional to the production. If you see a manufacturing industries like us, which we have mostly worked, so if a cyber attack means your entire plant is stopped for a few hours. So it depends on the severity and how it was scaled up in operation technology. The biggest impact for us from these parties stopping the production, and that is why. Second thing is confidential information getting blocked because of these ransomware guys. So they demand a huge cost, and sometimes companies will not find any chance, or there is no other way other than paying Bitcoins. And some of them they don't pay because they recover the systems. So that is the biggest change, at least we have seen, where with a minimum IT impact, with a minimum impact on the IT services to the major impact on confidentiality and productivity. So this is the biggest change which we have seen in this cyber security area. So this can be because of many reasons, which I'll now in previous session Ravindra also said about this encryptions and all. This is like which IT is to take care, but moreover there has to be discipline from a business also, because we give some moderation to the business users, where we give some accessible IT services or backend tables. So there is a major part, and as he said, the assets which we have in the industry, most of these assets are not updated with the latest OS patches. So that is the second part. Another is what are the configuration guidelines which are implemented by the company in the system. For example, most of us are dependency, we have a dependency on a third-party software development guys. So in-house development guys are very few, we see. Though some companies are having, but is it that we are following those standards to ensure that the security is taken care of, design thinking, whether it is there in the initial stages. So these are the points, some of the points which we need to really consider, other than the common factors like awareness on these phishing and all that. Your company, the employees are aware on what is the best practices, what are the do's and don'ts. So typically, if you see in a manufacturing industry, production is important other than reading mails and adopting. So these are the challenges which we have from a cyber security point of view in the manufacturing industry.
Great. Thank you for that insightful answer, RaviKiran. We'll probably move on to the next question. Nimit, if you may bring that up. So probably Ravindra has been waiting for some time, so we'll probably go on to Ravindra to start with. Ravindra, I think in your capacity as an OEM, you typically have to handle customers from various industry sectors, right? Defense, BFSI, and various different sectors, including manufacturing, etc. as well. Are there any differences in the way these attacks are to be handled by different sectors as such, or is there any common pattern, or is there anything completely unique about a particular industry sector as such? What have you seen in your experience thus far?
So yeah, thanks Sabri for bringing that question for me, because I do take care of different verticals and go and meet them. But then if you ask me, and same thing I have said in my presentation as well, so no industry, irrespective of the size and the nature, is immune to the cyber attack. So, but then yeah, the hacker usually runs behind the trend, right? Runs behind the industry where they can get the returns, right? Now, if you look at the typical pandemic situation, look, we all know that BFSI has been the routinely targeted industry because of the nature of business they drive and the financial assets associated with it. But then we have seen that hackers are targeting manufacturing and healthcare industries more in pandemic. Now, if you have seen, manufacturing industries has saw 11% growth in the cyber attack in 2020 compared to the last year 2019, and healthcare is one, because we all know this healthcare is one of the industry where COVID pandemic they have done pretty good. So hacker thought this is the industry they should be targeting on. So healthcare is the another prime target for ransomware attack, because the sheer amount of critical data they carry related to the patients and the medical record and the history, which can they can leverage and put it onto the dark web, and all those things can be used for the insurance fraud as well, right? So again, apart from BFSI, healthcare, manufacturing, and with this pandemic, the higher education, industry is something which they targeted. Again, the amount of student data, the awareness, right? The BOID concept in the education institute, where people can bring their devices. Those are not the student does not follow the password complexity which you usually face in IT, and those are the susceptible to devices for the cyber attacks. So yeah, although there is no specific industry which is more what you call immune and less immune, hacker can go to any industry. But then yeah, basics of security remains same. Vishal already talked about it. Maintain a basics of the security. For me, the basics of security is 3P. It is password, patch, and privilege. Now, if you manage to have these 3P in place, have a complex password with two-factor authentication, all systems applications are patched properly, and least privilege access, unnecessary admin accounts, unnecessary privileged access should be denied. And on top of it, you build a next generation security which is more towards AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning on your business need, right? Though security policy may vary depending on the industry, right? What kind of assets you want to protect, because for manufacturing it will be all about the ICS and the SCADA system which will be protecting. For BFSI, it will be more about the applications and the databases they want to protect. But then yeah, basics of security remains the same, and top of it, you can have a next generation security which can pacify the need according to the business which we are into. So
Oh,
that's it.
Thank you, Ravindra. I think in summary, principles are exactly the same across industry. A lot of us are worried about our money lying with the banks and making sure the banks are sufficiently protected against some of these attacks as well. So we'll ask Babitha about, are there any differences with which you have to handle something specific in your organization when these, to handle or mitigate these kind of cyber attacks? Happy to hear from you, Babitha.
Thank you, Shabri, for the question. It is a really a relevant question also. That is like, as Ravindra has highlighted, it is irrespective of the industry. On root cause analysis of any cyber attack, we can see that fraudsters are getting into an organization through exploiting existing vulnerabilities in the system. And to get into the system, they can use social engineering or through phishing mail. So when it comes to the cyber attack, basics of handling the threat vector are almost same, whether it is a BFSI or a manufacturing industry. When I'm considering into the BFSI specifically, most of the attacks are targeted attacks, because most of BFSI sectors have very strong cybersecurity infrastructure in place. And so if someone have to intrude into the system, the fraudsters have to know the security posture and the vulnerabilities that which they can exploit to get into the system. And when it comes to cybersecurity, always we say the human is the weakest link, and fraudsters are always exploiting the same to get into the system. Like it can be through a phishing mail. So cybersecurity awareness among the employees as well as the customers is very important, and we have to take a continuous effort to create awareness regarding the phishing mails. And above all, we should have a strong incident response also. Even if we click on the phishing mail or we attend to some phishing thing, we should report to the specific security team so that it is analyzed and the respective measures can be taken at a faster pace. To tackle with the zero-day attack, now we follow the detect, respond, and prevent strategy. So we have to build a security strategy to detect the malicious activity at the earliest and to respond to it as you all know, we can prevent only if we know something. So only the known vulnerabilities only can be prevented. So now we have to focus more on the detect and response rather than on the prevent. Of course, prevention is very necessary, but only thing it is only we can prevent only what we know. And now, as we all have other panelists were also discussing about the work from home to this pandemic and BYOD concept, which was not there in the banking industry earlier. So, and for that, we have to, it has come to work from home. Our perimeter of the organization has got extended. And BYOD, with the BYOD, the visibility of the assets also, and its security posture of the device is lacking. In scenario, we security professionals, we have to come up with methodologies to have a secure strategy like a dedicated VPN with multi-factor authentication, geo-based access, time-based access, or security measures to enhance the visibility of the asset. So like that, whenever it comes in any industry, whether it is a BFSI or any other industry, we have to adapt to the business needs and have to come up with strategies to adapt to the needs based on in a secured way. So we have to build a security culture across the organization, irrespective of whether it is a BFSI or a manufacturing industry.
Understood. Absolutely. I think depending on the local business needs, things have to be worked out, but principles remain the same, as you mentioned, preventing, detecting, responding, very vital appropriately. Over to you, Navaneethan. Happy to hear your inputs on it.
No, well said, Babitha. I mean, just in addition to the Babitha point, it's like how we detect, how prevent, and then how soon we prevent. Also, it's very important, right? And after detection, we should not be repeating the same step action. So, how soon you detect and then how soon you prevent, it's a play very significant role in the cybersecurity areas from the end to end. I can say. And on top of that, very important factors across the recent organizations. Maybe it may be at the enterprise or the product-based company or engineering company or maybe service-based organization. The people have taken into the work from home, and most of the applications also connected on the the absolutely on the API side. So here I'm seeing there is a segregation between the personal data and the official data. It's very difficult to find out, right? I mean, as RaviKiran had mentioned, it's maybe at the GOID or it's maybe it's like the official stuff. But you can't segregate like which is personal, which is official. So one is in terms of segregation of data is challenging, and then other side is in terms of you can access your office environment anywhere, right? It may be an office, or it's maybe on beach, or it may be on road. Ultimately, just you have infrastructure to connect and then take it forward. And third, aspect just I'm bringing in terms of connecting all the applications interface, right? It's the entire environment. If you see the 20 years back, where we need the physical connectivity to connect all the applications in the infrastructure. Now things are on the API. It's just a matter of time. Like whatever you wanted to just post and put or get it, like it's a very simple API which help us a lot to connect the interface, to connect the world, to move ahead actually. And if you see this, most of the attacks, of course, one is fundamentalism missing at the organization side, and second one is really just moving on the different aspects, specifically on the the Wi-Fi sectors. So that's a very very keenly just we are putting a lot of effort on the the API configurations and then the API setup from end to end, how it has been taken, and most of the attacks it's happening with the the API security standpoint.
Got it. Thank you, Navaneethan. I think RaviKiran, I think the other three panelists have pretty much covered the entire gamut of things what are typically covered. Do you have anything else to add on top of it? Yeah, please.
See, there is a big difference in manufacturing industries on how we can handle cyber security. Yeah. The commonly buzzing words in our security domain is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which we very frequently speak about on the framework that we should have a confidentiality, integrity, availability of the IT systems. So in this, if you see the pattern, the confidentiality first, it comes first in IT industry, where we say that information has to be confidential. We need to secure those. Only authorized person should have. But in operational technology, which we call as a OT in manufacturing industries, confidentiality is not a priority for us. For us, is availability is a priority. So in the CIA, the last one comes first priority for us. Whereas in IT, confidentiality is a priority for us. So this is the biggest mindset which we need to balance between IT and OT guys. And if you see the IT systems which we replace for every 3 years or 4 years as per the life cycle of the system, or maybe we replace the servers at 4 or 5 years of frequency. Either we will change the entire technology. After 5 years, you will not see the old one anything which is lying in our data center. You will always have the latest one. But in operations, in the machine side, the manufacturing industries, at least minimum 30 years you have to spend with that machine. So it is not easy to replace the systems in the operation technology. So that is a second major part which we have at the part. Third is the people who are handling these systems. So earlier these machines were never connected to an internet or never connected to an intranet. So it is we used to have an isolated operation way, and we used to get a report separately in isolated system. Now we have integrated. So everybody wants the data very quickly, on time, real time data we want even from a manufacturing part. Earlier, if you see the car company, end of the day, we used to write on the board how many cars we have produced per the day. That is at 4:30 we used to write on a board. Now it is online, it's live. At that moment, how many cars are getting manufactured in the plant 1, plant 2, plant 3. So there is a biggest difference which is there in handling the cyber security in manufacturing industry. So what I'm going to bring it to notice is that we need to play the balance between the IT and OT by keeping these assets intact and as well as availability for them through various measures where we need to have a strategy where the till line has to be there still, but We need to have that balance between. But otherwise, if we go and tell all our jargon to manufacturing industries, they will never listen to us. They say that my priority, and they said my priority is making a car, or my priority is making a tire. Today, this is my target. So that way, yes, I see a big difference in the manufacturing industry from cybersecurity.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting perspective, trying to balance IT and OT. I think that's a very valid point. I'm just conscious about time. I think we need to wrap up in the next few minutes. So I will request your support to see if we can fast track some of the responses as well. So moving on logically to the next question, Nimit, if I may ask you. Right. So with the cyber threats, and the landscape of that is tremendously at a much faster pace, how prepared are CSOs to handle some of these right now? We'll probably start with you, Ravindra, for example. How are you seeing this from your end? From your perspective, how are organizations prepared? How are CSOs prepared right now? If I may request for a pretty precise, concise response so that we can try and get as much response as possible, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, Sabri, can you just repeat the question? I missed you in between.
Right. So how prepared are cybersecurity heads right now in countering today's threats right now as we speak? Right. So in your experience, how are you finding CSOs managing this?
All right. So, I mean, to be honest, on CSOs can answer it better way, but I'll again repeat the same thing. So if you can minimize the gaps, right, which we are seeing, and it starts with basic, which we already discussed about, but then very often I have found it that we have purchased all those next generation tools and the ammunition to protect our infrastructure, but those has not got implemented at the fullest, right? There are gaps, and the gaps basically remains in the part of configuration related ones, right? So no matter how good solution you have purchased, but if you are not able to optimally use it, it makes a difference. And that's where this auditing comes at very important stage, because when we say there are wrong exclusions made, right, wrong exceptions made, I have seen people putting team viewer admin into exception of the antivirus, and which are the tools hackers leverage and come inside your network. I have seen RDPs has been exposed over the internet, which comes through which hackers come through, capitalize the normal weak password to brute force and come inside your network, right? So these are the basic steps if you take care of. And then again, if you look at all those attack vectors, right, phishing email, as Babitha ma'am said, and this loopholes in the configuration has paid a lot of attack to come inside your network. If you can take care of it, and CISO's perspective, educating user can reduce the attack surface itself, right? Because user might not be aware about which link they need to click on and which they should be clicking on it. If they are confused, there has to be a way to report it to the IT and IT security team that I'm confused about this particular mail, rather than clicking on it, which can turn out to be a disaster one. So yeah, user awareness and using the product optimally will sort out many of the problems for the CISOs.
Correct. Vishal, over to you. Happy to hear from you.
I will give thanks, Sabri. I think this is quite interesting question, and I'll give you a different perspective what CISOs can do. And so the point here is every day is a new challenge for the CISOs, and they need to be always on their toes because they are dealing with the unknown. When we talk about the zero-day exploit and all that, so those are all unknown. So even if, as Ravindra mentioned, even if we have all the controls in place and everything, all the next generation firewalls and everything is in place, the point is we don't know from where the attackers will come and what they will exploit, and how they will be in our network. And statistically, it takes 4 to 5 months just to be aware that we have been hacked. So it's quite challenging situation for the CISOs, but I think they're doing pretty good in their areas. As Mr. RaviKiran also mentioned, again, depending on your industry, you need to deal with the different scenarios. So the first thing is, I think it's really challenging for CISOs because they don't get the money what they are asking for. They need to really justify justify the investment. And in cybersecurity, especially, showing return on investment, again, it's a very challenging job, because in marketing I can say that I have brought this much customers and this is the amount in terms of profit. In cybersecurity, I cannot say that I have saved the organizations for worth $100 million of attack, right? So it's a different story altogether. But in a nutshell, I can see that the 3 to 4 principles if the CISOs are following. The first thing is create the risk-aware culture in the organization, so that the employees should be filling the responsibility to safeguard the information, and it's not only the cybersecurity team who should be defending the attackers. That's first thing. Of course, Ravindra already mentioned how the modern architecture, the security architecture. But I would say with the remote working and with the cloud, you should have the borderless security, because now gone are the days where you were having a traditional perimeter and you were expecting that the attackers will come. But with this remote working functionality and cloud, now it's almost the borderless security. So I think CISO should probably focus in that particular area. So that's my views, Sabri. Handing over it to you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you,
Vishal,
Vishal.
you rightly said there is no border or perimeter, so that's why the concept of ZTNA or zero trust network access has been
Right.
emerged nowadays. Yeah, that's it.
That's correct.
Good. Thank you. I'm afraid in the interest of time, we're having to cut short the discussion. But I think the other two questions, whatever I had for you, gentlemen, was private, and to Babitha as well, was about what do you have to do pre and post cyber attack, and most of the things around prevention and doing detection and responsiveness and bringing that risk aware culture, and all of these are some of the points which goes into some of that aspects. So I'm afraid we have run out of time. We may have to close this straight away right now, unfortunately. Thank you all. It's been very insightful in terms of sharing your expertise of all from different various backgrounds, one from an OEM perspective, something from the financial services, something from a manufacturing sector. So thank you all for your time. I hope the audience, you got a good insights about if you need to handle something, how do you go about handle something like this in terms of cyber attack, and how do you go about preventing also. So thank you for that. Appreciate your time. Back to you, Nimit.
Thank you all. Thank you, Sabri.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nimit.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. With regards to this session, we are afraid we have to take those questions offline, but we will definitely work around the corner to make sure those questions are addressed from our delegate side. So now, moving on to our next session, the topic is on securing your cloud environment, why traditional approaches to cybersecurity will fall short. And firstly, I would like to introduce our moderator for today, Mr. Burgess Cooper. Mr. Burgess Cooper is a partner consulting for SAARC consulting services for EY. Burgess Cooper is a partner and head of cybersecurity market with a team of 600 plus professionals. He has 23 plus years of experience in securing some of the biggest brands in the world from potential cyber attacks. Prior to EY, he was a CISO with Vodafone and HSBC and responsible for information security, privacy, and compliance across the telecom and BFSI sector.